For this video, which is about land acknowledgments or territorial acknowledgments, I'm going to pass things over to my colleague Vince.
Writing land acknowledgments for the workplace. A land acknowledgment is either an oral or written statement of reconciliation, recognizing the original Indigenous peoples and the traditional territories they resided on prior to colonization of Canada. In context to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, or the TRC, which we'll talk about more in the next session. Land acknowledgement is a formal tradition of protocol pertaining to stewardship and the relationship to the land. And although the land acknowledgement is not a requirement of the TRC, it is an important statement of recognition to the land and the original peoples within the territories of Canada. Organizations that are willing to write a land acknowledgement are often at the forefront of recognizing diversity. So they are the leaders in the fields, and when it comes to recognizing the depth, the importance of diversity, these organizations are also prospering from creating inclusive work cultures, because that's another thing land acknowledgement does. They create inclusive workplace cultures. And there are so many advantages to having an inclusive culture. Now let's talk about writing a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement can be easy to write or recite. It should not cause undue stress. First thing, do some research on the traditional territories you're currently on. Find out from more than one source, including local Indigenous businesses and organizations within your town or city. A land acknowledgement is about recognizing the peoples and the land you now play on and call home. It is important to understand the sacrifices they endured. I would also recommend learning about the local language and trying to incorporate a local greeting or a welcoming in your land acknowledgement. A meaningful land acknowledgement would include proper pronunciation of these greetings and of the local Indigenous groups' names too. It is a pledge to honor the lands as their ancestors did and to pay homage to their history. So be sure to include this history in your land acknowledgement, but never copy and paste. Take some time to reflect and make your own. Copy and pasting takes away from the meaning and the purpose. Make an oral or written statement without making any attempt to engage is common oversight. This misrepresents the nature and the traditional values of a land acknowledgement. For example, a statement acknowledging the peoples and the land could be posted on a company's website, but that company may have never participated in an event for National Truth or Reconciliation Day on September 30th. Or they may have never engaged with local Indigenous organizations or events thereof. So, the land acknowledgement on the website is just an empty proclamation. And when it comes to delivering a land acknowledgement at meetings or events, don't ask any of the First Nations or Métis people within your organization unless that land you're acknowledging is outside of their territory. It does not make sense to ask someone to acknowledge land within their own territory, and to keep in mind that protocol insists on utilizing local Indigenous elders for events.
This brings us to the end of Lesson 5. Almost. Let's talk briefly about the other two Jedi Hub groups, persons with disabilities and racialized newcomers. First, I want to acknowledge the fact that a lot of Alberta's racialized newcomers have also experienced displacement. So, like the indigenous peoples of North America, they have been subject to colonization. Their traditional lands were stolen or exploited, and their communities forced to relocate. And this is not to say that newcomers, they do not need to learn about the lands they are now on. They absolutely do. This is to say that these two groups, racialized newcomers and indigenous peoples of Alberta, have more in common than it might seem, which opens the door, so to speak, to new possibilities. So new partnerships and new forms of collaboration. The other thing I wanted to mention has to do with accessibility. When you are delivering a land acknowledgement during a meeting or in an event, it often helps to use a visual aid. So share an image of the land you're talking about. For example, if I were addressing the fact that I live on Treaty 7 territory, I would share a map that shows the boundaries of Treaty 7. I might also share a list of the signatories, so that nations that signed Treaty 7. This is going to make your land acknowledgement more accessible. It's going to be appreciated, for example, by racialized newcomers who might not be totally familiar with the land yet, or by people with ADHD, who might find that visuals make it easier to stay engaged. It's also going to benefit those of us who identify as visual learners, which is a lot of people, because in the end, accessibility benefits everyone. To learn more about accessibility, check out Module 2. And to learn more about land acknowledgements, namely how to write your own land acknowledgement, check out the PDF that's included in this lesson. It walks you through the processes. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.